Around 500 years ago, a kilo of one plant's dried root could be worth more than a kilo of gold. And its old price tag isn't even the strangest part. The strange thing is why it was so expensive. Rhubarb, because that's what we're talking about, wasn't treated as food at all, and that was just one ridiculous story from that era. Would you believe asparagus was so important to a Roman emperor that he kept a special fleet of fast ships just to deliver it to his table as fresh as possible? Not one boat, not two, an entire fleet for a vegetable. The Romans didn't just see asparagus as food. They carved it onto tombs, prescribed it as medicine, and whispered about it as a kind of aphrodisiac. In later centuries, it showed up in love manuals, recommended to warm the blood and strengthen the body before a night in bed. If you believed even half of those stories, you might be tempted to park a fleet in the harbor too. But here's the part almost no modern gardening guide mentions. The same plant emperors obsessed over is a perennial you can grow once and harvest from for decades. Most gardens today treat asparagus like a short-season luxury, a few weeks on the supermarket shelf and then it's gone. Historically, it was the opposite. Asparagus was one of the quiet pillars of a household food system. It's one of the very first fresh foods of the year. While everything else is still asleep under cold soil, those green spears push up in early spring. Exactly when the last of the winter stores are running out and your body is starving for something fresh and alive. And they don't just taste like spring. They hit you with the stuff you've been missing all winter. Vitamin K, folate, vitamin C, fiber, antioxidants, all the things you don't get from potatoes, flour, and canned food. You don't treat asparagus like tomatoes starting from zero every year. You make a long-term deal with the plant, give it a permanent place, give it a few patient seasons, and in return, it sends you food at the exact moment of the year when you need it most. Plant once, let it disappear into the background of your garden, and then, every spring, it quietly reminds you there is another way to eat than just whatever happens to be on the supermarket shelf this week. This is the real point of the story. Today, we think of a garden as this endless cycle of work and replanting. Sowing the same annuals again and again every year. But it wasn't always like that. There have always been plants like asparagus. You plant them once, then mostly leave them alone and just keep harvesting. For generations, those quiet, long-lived crops were the backbone of a household. The plants you hardly touched all season, except to take food from them. Remember that root that once sold for more than gold? Rhubarb. For centuries, Europeans treated it like a drug, not a dessert. Most people who took it never saw the plant. Only dried, ground pieces of root in tiny, expensive doses. It traveled in caravans from Asia, passed through merchants and apothecaries, and landed in jars and paper packets on shelves. Then, a few centuries ago, when people discovered they could make sugar from beets, and it finally started appearing on ordinary tables, the story flipped. Instead of just importing the powder as medicine, people started growing the plant itself in European gardens. Someone finally made a very simple, very risky decision. They tried eating it. The leaves were poisonous, but the thick, sour stalks were a different thing entirely. Boiled with sugar, they turned into something sharp, fruity, bright. Mixed with whatever fruit was around, apples, gooseberries, later strawberries. Rhubarb fell from exotic medicine worth its weight in gold to poor man's fruit, growing behind the house. And as you already know by now, the important part isn't just what ends up in the bowl. It's what the plant does once it's in the ground. Rhubarb isn't a seasonal product that appears when the truck arrives and vanishes when the display is empty. You put a small crown in the soil once, and then it mostly looks after itself. Every spring, those red-green stalks punch through the dirt long before the supermarket decides it's strawberry season. You turn them into pies, jams, sauces, whatever you feel like experimenting with that year. Now, if asparagus felt like an emperor's toy, and rhubarb like the stubborn workhorse behind the house, there's one more perennial that sat somewhere in between. The queen. The artichoke. For centuries in Europe, artichokes were the kind of thing you served when you wanted to show off. Catherine de' Medici was so fond of them that in some stories they're called her vegetable. Scandalous, luxurious, and a little bit indecent for the time. But underneath all that status, an artichoke is just a flower you interrupted. Left alone, the buds open into huge violet-blue thistle flowers. Cut at the right moment, before they open, they become layers of fleshy bracts you scrape with your teeth, wrapped around a soft, dense heart that tastes far richer than a flower has any right to. In the right climate, you plant artichokes once, and they come back year after year, sending up new buds each season. On paper, they're just another ornamental thistle. On the plate, they're fiber, minerals, a pile of antioxidants, and a surprisingly filling vegetable that's really a flower that never got to bloom. 3 very different plants. One shared idea: asparagus, rhubarb, artichokes. You don't rip them out every autumn. You don't restart them from seed every spring. You give them a piece of ground and a few patient years, and they just keep coming back, whether the supermarket is ready for them or not. We're so used to gardening as start over every season, new seeds, new plans, new mistakes, that it's easy to forget how much of the old food system was built on the opposite. A handful of long-lived plants in the background, feeding you quietly even in the years when everything else goes wrong. And these 3 are just the ones we talked about today. There are plenty more hiding in old gardens and family stories. Plants that used to be medicine, festival food, or simply what everyone's grandmother grew before supermarkets taught us to ignore them. So let's do it this way. In the comments, name one plant where you live that works like this. Something you plant once and keep eating from for years. Whichever plant shows up the most, that one becomes the main character of the next episode in this series.